Resign or be immediately terminated. Those were the words on the screen in conference room Alder at 4:12 p.m., delivered by a man who still had a price tag on his suit sleeve. He said it like a weather report, not like he was trying to erase 21 years with a signature line. My name is Dana Reed. I am 45. I run program operations for Brightlane Platforms, a mid-size software company in St. Louis that builds scheduling and inventory systems for factories that never sleep. If a plant in Ohio runs 3 shifts without a production stoppage, odds are my team did something boring and essential weeks earlier. For 2 decades, my value was continuity. I knew which clients still used the ancient barcode scanners that only worked after a double reboot. I knew which vendor insisted on payment by wire because their accounting system was older than Disco. I knew why a clause in a 2011 contract banned a certain database upgrade after a catastrophic outage no one wanted to remember. Then February arrived, and with it came Monarch Capital Group, a private equity firm that collected software companies the way toddlers collect shiny rocks. They bought Brightlane with a smiling press release about growth. They sent in a new leadership trio like a marching band with no sheet music. The new chief executive was Miles Corbett, 36, loud, athletic, and allergic to details. The new chief financial officer was Trent Hale, 33, obsessed with spreadsheets and suspicious of salaries that contained commas. The new head of people operations was Tessa Wynn, who spoke in slogans and scheduled mandatory optimism. On day 1, Miles told us, nothing meaningful will change. On day 2, Trent asked for a list of employees over 40 and called it a workforce cost review. On day 3, my calendar began to empty like someone was quietly pulling oxygen out of the room. I had seen this movie through friends at other firms. The playbook was always the same: praise the legacy team, isolate the expensive people, strip responsibilities, then offer a choice between a humiliating pay cut or a document that trades your rights for pocket change. So I did 2 things. First, I kept performing. I hit every metric, I answered every escalation, I kept the factories humming. Second, I documented everything: screenshots, meeting notes, calendar changes, emails about headcount targets. I saved them to an encrypted drive that lived in a fire safe under my stairs. I also printed the most important items, because paper does not require passwords. In March, Trent announced an organizational redesign. 3 senior managers were eliminated. 2 were women over 40. They were replaced by recent graduates with job titles that sounded like video games. In April, Miles held a town hall and celebrated fresh energy. He introduced a new director, Jonah Pike, 27, hired from a consultancy that charged by the syllable. Jonah had never managed a production support team, but he had an expensive haircut and a confident smile. Miles praised Jonah for bringing modern thinking. Modern thinking in practice meant Jonah asked my team to stop using incident runbooks because they felt negative. That same week, my access to the contract archive began to fail. My badge stopped opening the data room. Tessa told me it was a routine permissions cleanup. I requested the change ticket. I requested the approval trail. I asked politely, in writing, for a reason. I copied myself at my personal email, because my father taught me that you keep copies when the room suddenly gets quiet. In May, a project I had led for 5 years was reassigned to Jonah. I sat in the meeting where he presented my timeline back to me with new fonts. Miles clapped. Trent smiled. Tessa asked us to celebrate wins. I did not argue. I did not make a scene. I took notes. Because when a company starts treating your experience like clutter, you do not fight with feelings. You fight with language, and language, used carefully, is sharper than any blade in the building. June was when the polite erosion turned into an excavation. Trent started sending me calendar invites with titles like Alignment Touchpoint and Cost Clarity. Every invite included Jonah, even when the topic was a vendor relationship Jonah could not pronounce. Trent would ask a question, Jonah would answer with confidence, and then Jonah would look at me for the real answer, like a child looking at the adult, after making a bold claim about gravity. One afternoon, Trent slid a spreadsheet across the table. It was color-coded, because men like Trent believed color made cruelty look like science. Dana, he said, we are streamlining roles. Your current position is being sunset. We are creating a new role, operations coordinator. Similar scope, but narrower, more tactical, less strategic. The salary band is 95,000. I stared at the number. My base pay was 190,000. Kuti. Cutting it in half was not streamlining. It was a dare. It was constructive dismissal wearing a tie. I kept my face neutral. I asked for the job description. I asked what responsibilities were moving and where. I asked for the timeline. Trent answered like a man reading from a script he did not write. That evening, I called my attorney, Lila Serrano, an employment lawyer who had a voice like a warm knife. She asked for facts. Do you have your employment agreement? She said. I did. It lived in my files because I hoard paperwork the way Trent hoards headcount reductions. Lila read a section out loud. Change in control protection. Good reason resignation. Salary reduction of more than 10%. Material reduction in duties. It was all there, written years ago by a founder who knew exactly what private equity likes to do. Lila said, they are trying to force you to quit. Do not quit. If they insist on resignation, you will resign only under your terms. Under my terms sounded like a fantasy, but I liked the taste of it. We built a plan. I would keep documenting. I would respond professionally. I would never threaten. I would never mention legal action at work. And I would stop doing free favors that lived only in my head. So I changed how I worked. When a manager asked for a quick call to fix a client escalation, I asked for a ticket. When someone begged for a verbal summary of a contract clause, I requested the clause in writing, and replied in writing. When Jonah asked me to explain an old integration, I gave him the official documentation, not the shortcuts. The company did not like the new version of me. The company preferred the old version, quiet, fast, and generous with my knowledge. By July, the pressure got louder. Tessa began asking me to attend culture coaching sessions. She said my tone felt resistant. Jonah said I did not seem excited about transformation. Miles asked if I had considered retirement, in the same voice he used to ask if I wanted sparkling water. Meanwhile, more layoffs happened. Always the same pattern. Older, higher paid, long tenure, gone. The replacements arrived with bright eyes and thinner resumes. They were not villains, they were bait. I watched my team start to panic. People whispered near printers. People started volunteering for weekend work like they could earn safety through exhaustion. I pulled my direct reports into a meeting and told them one rule: keep records. Every directive, every change, every promise. If it matters, document it. I kept it framed as operational discipline. I did not mention the word lawsuit. Then came the final shove. On a Thursday in late July, Trent emailed me at 4:03 p.m. Subject: Immediate leadership review. Conference room Alder. In person. Now. Alder again. The same room that always felt colder than the rest of the floor, as if the building itself knew what that room was used for. I printed my notes. I put a folder in my bag. I walked down the hall, steady, calm, and already halfway through the argument I planned to make if they tried to rewrite my career as a cost problem. Because I had learned something important. They did not fear my performance. They feared my memory. Conference room Alder had that corporate chill that comes from too much air conditioning and too little humanity. The long table gleamed. The chairs were arranged like a tribunal. Miles sat in the middle. Trent sat to his right. Tessa sat to his left with a laptop open like a shield. Jonah was there too because insecurity loves an audience. Miles smiled with practiced sympathy. Dana, thanks for coming. This is a quick conversation. Trent slid a folder toward me. 2 documents waited inside, already prepared, just missing my signature. Option 1, Trent said. You sign a resignation letter today. We give you 4 weeks' pay and a neutral reference. Option 2, Tessa said. You refuse, and we terminate you immediately. Position elimination. No severance. Miles leaned forward. Resign or be immediately terminated. The resignation letter was pre-written on company letterhead. It included a release of claims and a line that made my stomach turn. I acknowledge full satisfaction of all compensation owed. They wanted me to sign a receipt before they paid the bill. I met Miles' eyes. You are asking me to give up my rights for 4 weeks' pay. We are offering you an exit with dignity, Miles said. Dignity is behavior, I replied. Not a payout. Trent exhaled, impatient. This is standard. Standard for you, I said. Not standard for my contract. I placed my notebook on the table. I will resign. Relief flickered across their faces. Trent pushed a pen toward me. Sign here. No, I said. I will write my own resignation letter. Tessa stiffened. The language needs to be compliant. I smiled. You will get my signature on my words. After a brief whisper conference, Miles said, Fine, you have 1 hour. Bring it back today. I returned to my office, shut the door, and opened my personal laptop. Lila and I had built the letter months earlier, after Trent first hinted that older leaders were costing too much. We wrote it the way you write a safety protocol, plain, precise, and hard to misread if you actually bother to read it. 1 sentence, no speeches, no anger, just a condition. I printed it on plain paper. I signed in blue ink. I made copies for my records and scanned it to my encrypted drive. Then I walked back to Alder. Miles glanced at it and nodded. Acceptable. Trent said, HR will process your severance in the next payroll cycle. I said, thank you for confirming receipt, and walked out. In the hallway, my assistant Priya caught my sleeve. Dana, are you leaving? I met her eyes. I am leaving when my letter says I am leaving. Keep your notes. I packed only personal items. A mug, a framed photo, a stubborn plant. I left the binders and shared drives untouched. I was not taking company property. I was taking my silence. Security escorted me to the elevator. The company email system revoked my access before the doors finished closing. Trent liked to move fast, because speed can look like confidence when you do not understand consequences. I stepped into the summer heat, got into my car, and drove home. My phone buzzed with messages from my team, from vendors, from clients who always called me when something broke. I did not answer. I could not help them without helping the people who were trying to erase me. At home, I put the letter copy next to my contract, then poured a glass of water and watched the light fade at my window. In my head, I could already hear the next sound, the frantic voice of a corporate lawyer discovering that 1 sentence can cost more than an entire reduction plan. All I had to do now was wait for them to actually read it. I slept that night like someone who finally put a locked door between herself and a burning building. I knew they would celebrate for a day, maybe 2. Then payroll would run, the contract would be checked, and the room would go silent for a very different reason. The call came 5 days later at 7:38 a.m., right on schedule. Corporate panic keeps banker hours. The number was blocked, but the voice was unmistakably legal, careful, clipped, and already defensive. Ms. Reed, this is Nathan Kelso. I represent Monarch Capital Group and Bright Lane Platforms. We need to discuss the exact language in your resignation letter. Good morning, Mr. Kelso, I said. Which part confused you? There is confusion, he said, about the phrase effective upon receipt of complete settlement of all amounts owed under my employment agreement, equity awards, and applicable law. Can you clarify what you meant? I opened my laptop to the spreadsheet Lila and I had prepared. 57 tabs. Each tab had a source. Contract section, policy excerpt, wage statute, or email. I meant exactly what the words mean, I said. My resignation becomes effective when I receive complete settlement of all amounts owed. Until then, I am not resigned. Silence. Then he tried again. You already received 4 weeks' severance. I have received nothing, I said. Trent said it would be processed in the next payroll cycle. Another silence. Longer. Mr. Kelso, I continued, your executives demanded resignation or immediate termination. I chose resignation. You accepted my resignation letter. It is conditional. You can satisfy the condition, or you can keep me employed. Keep you employed, he repeated, voice tightening. Correct. If my resignation is not effective, I remain an employee with salary, benefits, and protections. Also, delaying earned wage payments can trigger statutory penalties. I assume you are familiar with them. I heard paper shuffling. He was pulling documents he should have read before someone let Trent play executioner. What do you believe you are owed? He asked. Base salary through the effective date. Accrued paid time off. Approved expense reimbursements. My annual performance bonus. Payable upon separation without cause. My long-term incentive plan payout, which accelerates on change in control. My equity awards, which vest on change in control and involuntary separation or good reason resignation. And the change in control severance, which is 12 months of salary plus benefits. That is not correct, he said too quickly. I clicked a tab. Section 9.3 says it is correct. I can email you the citations. A faint voice in the background whispered, she is right about the good reason trigger. Kelso cleared his throat. We will need to review. Of course, I said. Take your time. But be aware that every day you delay increases what is owed. Also, I filed a charge with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission yesterday regarding age-based terminations and retaliation. His tone shifted from skeptical to urgent. You filed already? Yes. I have documentation of terminations after the acquisition and internal notes about targeting expensive legacy leaders. If you choose litigation, discovery will be educational. Ms. Reed, he said, perhaps we can resolve this amicably. I love amicable, I replied. Here is what I need. Full payment of the amounts owed under the contract, confirmation of benefit continuation through the effective date, and a letter of reference signed by Miles stating my performance was exemplary. Mutual non-disparagement. Confidential settlement amount. He offered a number. I declined. He offered a higher number. I declined. Finally, he asked carefully, what would it take for you to withdraw the charge? I will not withdraw it, I said. That protects other people. Settle my contract obligations and treat the remaining staff like humans. The call ended with a promise to circle back. When I hung up, I texted Lila 2 words. They called. Her reply was immediate. Good. Do nothing. So I did nothing. And that, in corporate warfare, is often the most aggressive move available. 2 hours later, my work email flickered back to life, likely because someone realized that locking out a person who might still be an employee creates a second problem on top of the first. I did not reply to anything. I simply forwarded the internal thread titled Vaughn Resignation Risk to Lila, then closed the laptop and went for a walk. Let them sweat in their own air conditioning. The second call came that evening, not from Kelso, but from Trent. He sounded like a man trying to hold a smile over a cracked tooth. Dana, he said, we need to talk. There has been a misunderstanding. It was not a misunderstanding. It was a reading comprehension problem. I kept my voice even. You can speak through counsel, Trent. He ignored that. We are willing to correct the severance offer. We can do 8 weeks, 10. We can add a bonus. Just tell us what you want. What I want is what my contract says, I replied, And I want you to stop threatening people with termination for asking basic questions. He sputtered. You cannot hold the company hostage. I am not holding anything, Trent. You handed me a document and demanded I sign. I wrote a document and you accepted it. That is how paper works. He hung up, hard. 2 days later, Kelso called again. This time he sounded tired, which is the sound of a lawyer who has finally read the attachments. Ms. Reed, Monarch would like to propose a settlement. He named a number that was finally close to reality. It included 12 months of salary continuation, accelerated incentive payout, the value of the vested equity, paid time off, and reimbursements. It also included attorney's fees for Lila, because Monarch had decided that paying my lawyer was cheaper than fighting my lawyer. I asked for 3 additional items: a written statement that my separation was not for performance, a neutral reference policy in writing, and a signed letter from Miles praising my work. Kelso paused, then said yes, because yes is cheaper than ego. The funds arrived by wire on a Friday morning. I watched the confirmation number appear on my screen and felt something unexpected. Not glee, but relief. Money is not revenge. Money is insulation. It buys time, safety, and choices. The settlement agreement took 48 pages to say, "We messed up, please do not talk about it." I signed after Lila reviewed every clause. My resignation became effective at 2:14 p.m., the moment the wire cleared and the benefits continuation letter arrived. The next week, Bright Lane posted my role online under a new title, Transformation Operations Lead. Jonah was promoted into it. The salary band was lower than what I had been offered for coordinator because the company had learned a lesson. You can underpay new people if you do not tell them what the old people earned. The factories did not learn that lesson. Problems started. Vendor terms were missed. A client escalated a dispute over a legacy clause that Jonah did not know existed. A release went out without the old rollback plan, and a plant in Indiana went dark for 6 hours. 6 hours does not sound long until you picture a production line idling while executives argue on a call. Monarch held another town hall. Miles announced a commitment to operational excellence. He also announced a new compliance initiative around respectful communication. He did not say my name. He did not have to. Everyone knew. 3 months later, Priya texted me from a new number. Jonah quit. Trent is being reassigned. Miles is moving to an advisory role. She added a single line. They finally realized you were the runbook. I wrote back, keep your copies. As for me, I did not retire to a beach. I did something quieter and meaner. I started consulting for the kinds of companies Monarch tries to buy. I charge by the hour, and I teach leaders how to build systems that do not rely on one person. It is a strange irony. The best way to punish incompetence is to become unbuyable. Sometimes I think about that conference room and the ultimatum on the screen. Resign or be immediately terminated. They thought it was a weapon. It was a confession. It proved coercion. It triggered my contract protections, and it showed exactly how little they understood the machinery they were trying to drive. There is a moral here, if you want one. Know your agreements, keep records, speak in writing. And when someone tries to reduce your entire career to a signature line, remember that the sharpest revenge is not shouting. It is choosing your words so carefully that they cannot escape them.